Hi, I'm Jason Levine. Virtual reality is getting a lot of buzz, but there's a lot more to creating compelling VR content than putting on a pair of goggles. This week on Make It, I'm talking with someone who literally quit her day job to break all the VR rules. Why, you ask? Jess Kantor is here to tell you why. Jess, thank you so much for joining me today on the show. So awesome to have you here. Today, it's all about VR, right? We're going to talk about VR and 360, but I thought it might be cool maybe for you to sort of start talking to the audience about how you got into this and how you basically did something that I think a lot of creatives want to do, which is kind of give up the comfort of that day gig and not only, go out and do your own thing independently, but go into a field like VR that is still very much in its infancy and it's so new and sort of undiscovered. That's a huge risk and a huge leap, and I thought people would really enjoy kind of hearing the story of how you evolved into this new kind of independent director role.
I started my career in traditional film and television and got kind of stuck as an assistant and moved into content marketing where there were budgets, I could make a ton of work, and kind of in the later part of my career, the last job that I had, right. I was working for Sundance, and a lot of amazing things happened there. It was a very hard place to work because they expect so much of you at a nonprofit's budget. And
right, a lot of demand. Yeah.
A lot of demand, but they introduced me to VR, and they reminded me that I was an artist.
Right.
You start to realize you're identifying with the people you're interviewing, right. More so than doing the interview. Right. So I was just like kind of in this mode. And so at the last festival that I worked, I instructed my team every time they did an interview to ask the person they were talking to at the very end, what was that moment when they realized they had made it as an independent artist, when they could quit their day job. Right. And so it ended up turning into this cute little piece called Quit Your Day Job, the risk of being an independent artist. And little did my team know that I had already quit. So, and it was this little piece that I could kind of go back to when I was freaking out to remind myself, like, I'm taking this risk for a reason.
And you had the freak out. You must have had the freak out, right?
Many a times.
Right.
I mean, luckily doing that once you've had a career, you have a baseline of consulting.
Okay,
and,
sure.
So I lined up a couple consulting gigs knowing it was going to take me a minute to make my full income as a director.
Sure.
But what I thought was so exciting about it was that I could make something terrible and it was still good.
Because it was so new and undiscovered.
Exactly.
So they hear these terms, they hear VR, they hear 360, they hear AR, augmented reality. I'm not sure everyone kind of really understands how they're different.
I think about it as my viewer, my participant's level of agency.
Okay.
360 video, my viewer can only move their head. They can't fully embody a character. They can't walk around a space. They're starting to add like 6 degrees now of movement.
Right.
So that for me, that's 360 video. And then when you go into virtual reality, it's where you can fully move around in the space.
Right. In a virtual world.
In a full virtual world, where your full physical presence is in a place that you're not actually in. And then augmented reality or mixed reality is when you're in a space and you're adding technological enhancements. Right. So whether additional sound or digital imagery that's mapped. So Snapchat filters are a sense of augmented reality.
Pokemon Go characters.
Pokemon Go, anything that's kind of brought into your world. Right. I mean, I think the dream for most of us is that we'll have one set of glasses, they'll feel like, or contact lenses, and I can jump in and out of reality to mixed reality to virtual reality.
Despite this new medium and these new ways of creating and this kind of creating immersive content, you're really focused on being a practicing storyteller and kind of continuing the thread of the story into this new VR film producing world, which if you look at a lot of the content out there today, again, even in its infancy, granted we're a couple years in this new version of VR, not a lot of story-driven content, right? It's really a lot of click and drag and, ooh, it's amazing, and we're in the sphere, but you could be in the sphere anywhere. It's just sort of, it's the excitement of seeing something you've never seen without any sort of substance. And I was really intrigued by the fact that you really believe that the story can be told in VR as well, in 360.
Yeah, I mean, there's still that active debate, and people don't really think there's a place for story, or it's called storyscapes. But I just think we haven't discovered the language of storytelling yet, which is what the fun part is of experimenting in this world. I definitely believe that we can construct world, and people need that direction of where to go, or they get lost, or they feel like they should be looking everywhere at once, and so that's that fear of missing out, right?
Right, and that's the thing, right? I mean, I've even seen people when the first time they're sort of experiencing in the goggles, like, it's this immediate desire to just flip themselves around, right?
Exactly.
And I guess that was my next question too. Is so what about that? What about, like, why VR? Why this? Why did you choose this specifically?
Well, I chose it because I think we're going into our next set of computing paradigm. The idea of the screen is going to really go away in the next decade, and we're going to experience like an augmented reality, a mixed reality world. And I think virtual reality is just on the spectrum of that. And so I don't think 2D storytelling is going to go away in any sense or form, but the idea of us sitting at a computer, I do believe, is going to go away. And us sitting in front of certain kinds of screens, or even the way we use our phones, is going to change. And so there's room for to tell stories in this world. And I don't think it's, the idea of, I think, beginning of the VR debate, people were like, it's like 3D, it's a gimmick, it's going to go away.
Which you still hear this. And yet it's obviously continued to rise, even sort of past 3D's little bump, because, again, a lot of the not trepidation, but a lot of the resistance with 3D was, you need this kind of TV, you've got to wear these polarized glasses, it has to be created for that. And that was kind of a turnoff. Yet this, despite needing gear, seems to continue to draw people in.
And I think because 3D was really limited to just entertainment. Where I think VR is going to, and augmented reality is really going to change every industry. There's a bigger kind of thing happening in the world where I think the niche that I'm carving out for myself, the storytelling niche, is just a niche within a larger world. It's not the whole world. I'm going to invest my time in trying to develop a language of storytelling. And it takes making a ton of content. And so that's just basically what I do, is I just make a ton of stuff.
And it also takes a lot of trial and error and success and failure. And this is something else that you've talked about in your blogs too, like showcasing, hey, the hardware is new, the software is new. There's going to be a lot of failure involved here, and you're comfortable sharing that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much hate everything I've made. There are like these moments.
True artist right there. Always write it off after it's done. Yes.
But there are moments, right? And I watch everyone's work. Like if anyone says they've gotten it right, we're not there yet. We haven't even seen like our Citizen Kane or our, we haven't had that moment of transcendence in the space yet. So I'm creating 360 video for a headset where I really care about my viewer's agency. About like, I want to pay off. When you're looking to the right, I may add something which you don't even unconsciously know, where I have an interaction and you move to another scene in a different way. And so that's kind of like pushing the boundary of 360, where like if you cut 360 like a traditional video and it's seen on Facebook and YouTube, you would never want to watch that in a headset. It'll make you nauseous. And that to me is just a 360 video. It doesn't have that borderline VR. And I think I get upset when somebody doesn't take my 360 video seriously because they didn't look at it in a headset. And they didn't see my intention.
Because a lot of people are just creating them on screen. Again, I know you cut in Premiere Pro as well, but you're right. They're designing for the web, basically, or for phone consumption, and again, kind of moving around the sphere, not really being in that place that you're seeing.
So I like very purposely am designing my stories for a headset. So I, like when I'm shooting, I will remove the camera and put my head there and watch all the blocking happen with my head as the camera, thinking about the viewer. And that really helps in terms of distance and how I'm connecting and blocking. And so I always think about it that way. And I have these debates a lot where I don't think I would be ready to tell a full embodied stories until I understood how to tell a story in 360. Like my brain couldn't get there. And that's just me. Like, if people don't know where to start, I would say start with making a 360 video. You don't need as much technical knowledge. And then put it in the headset and see why it doesn't work. And that's a really good place to start, just trying and doing. But now I'm starting to write stories that maybe start as a 360 video, but have like 2 scenes that are fully embodied VR. And so sort of mixing kind of this real life world with this kind of fully adaptable.
And as you said, kind of mixing mediums in the same story to just better the story.
Well, and my philosophy in storytelling in VR is I want you to transcend the technology. So it's like if you're reading a book and you forget that you're turning the page. Like I don't want to put you in a VR headset or like a full VR headset or a 360 video headset like this one, where you're having to figure out how to play the game.
Right.
when you're really supposed to be emotionally engaged in a story.
Right.
So I want it to all be natural. And so my user experience, the way I design the story, how I put the viewer in it, all of that is about helping. I want it to be so subtle. And like when people are like, I don't understand, like that was just so simple. And I was like,
right.
you know how hard simple is?
Right, right, know? Simple. So now just on that, so now, again, it's obvious that, I mean, you've done, again, even in a short period of time, an enormous amount of research about all of this. And as a result, now you're actually a mentor for sort of VR creation production, specifically with something called Oculus for Good. So what is that all about?
But really, it's there's one with an organization called Digital Promise, and it's a 360 challenge they bring to high schools around the country. Oh, cool. And they set them up with a Gear VR and a Theta camera, and we help go through the process of making VR. The students make it, and they submit it, and then we judge it, and the top ones get promoted on Facebook. Sure. And within the communities, and it's both helping the students understand the new technology, but then there's themes about community and how to work together and like what their programs are and helping them kind of bring their worlds into a digital world. And so it's been really rewarding. It also, I find teaching helps me like think about the things I'm not normally, that I'm just kind of moving forward through, right. If you know what I mean?
Reevaluate certain common things that you do. Right?
Yeah, or even just like realize that I do have a practice.
Right.
It might not be everybody's practice, but I
right.
have like a way of working.
Right. And sharing that too, I imagine, allows you to refine that message as you're doing it.
Exactly. And it's, just giving them tools to discover, like, or how to create their own tools. Like, this is how I've discovered how I edit. Right. Like, I have this process, and some people take the time and make every shot perfectly stitched and then
right.
they edit. Right. I don't, because
right.
I hate stitching.
Yeah, stitching's a drag.
It's
right.
a drag.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, stitching is compositing to camera. So the 2 shots I get from this into a single shot.
Right.
Or if I have 15 cameras, it would be 15 shots into
right.
a single shot.
Right.
And so I don't want to take time until I want to only make the few frames that I choose to be as beautiful as possible.
Right, to matter, to be the reason why you want to be in this scene in the first place.
Exactly.
Well, Jess, thank you again so much for joining me. This has been amazingly informative, inspirational, and I think really what you're doing already, even for me, has just changed my whole vision on how you can truly tell stories in this medium. And I sincerely mean that, because what you're actually doing is you're bringing story into it, and you're emphasizing that there has to be a reason for everything you do in this new medium, and avoid the don'ts. Just try, right? Just give it a shot. There should be, the rules are meant to be broken, and I love that. So thank you so much. And don't forget that every week here on Make It, we're featuring amazing creatives from around the world using our software and showcasing their incredible talents. So be sure to tune in every week for new features right here on YouTube. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again next time.